People perform wealth every day. You scroll past tailored coats, new phones, and carefully staged coffee shots, and it looks like some people have already arrived even when their bank balance says otherwise. That gap between image and reality creates a kind of tension you can feel. Some do it on purpose. Buying a $2 suit or reserving the corner table at an expensive co-working space isn't just shopping. It's a set of signals that change how others treat you, and that treatment can lead to opportunities you wouldn't get otherwise. The mindset shift is less about the items and more about stepping into an identity that invites different interactions. It can also blow up in your face. Flashy spending without reserves creates debt and fragility. A designer jacket won't pay a car repair or keep you afloat when income drops. When signals aren't matched by real cushions, savings, skills, relationships, the whole performance becomes costly theater. You want progress, not a good headline. The payoff is clarity, which habits actually open doors, and which are just expensive status markers that cost you interest. The first impression, why we start acting rich. You notice the tiny shift in the air the second you walk into a room. People size up clothes, posture, and the shine on a shoe in a heartbeat, and that split-second judgment often decides who gets asked a question and who gets ignored. That quick read is backed by a simple psychological tendency called the halo effect. One positive cue, neat clothes, confident posture, or a well-maintained phone, leads others to assume competence, reliability, and status. So the pressure to look like you belong at the top starts before anyone asks your name. Small, observable details do a lot of heavy lifting. A tidy haircut, a pressed blazer, and a watch that catches the light communicate different things than a wrinkled tee and scuffed sneakers. People notice a clean car in the driveway or an expensive-looking phone case. Service staff open doors wider, recruiters linger longer, and strangers smile first. Those are concrete cues with outsized influence on the first impression you give. There are direct rewards for getting that first impression right. At networking events, the person who looks successful often gets introduced into the core conversation, which leads to connections and sometimes deals. In client meetings, a salesperson who presents confidently and looks the part is more likely to be trusted and offered the contract. The effect is practical. Better treatment begets better opportunities, so acting wealthy becomes a shortcut to social and professional advantages. Context changes everything, and misreading it can backfire. A designer suit signals authority in a law firm but can read as out of touch or performative at a grassroots community meeting. Flashy accessories at a startup pitch might distract from your idea instead of lending credibility. Matching the right signals to the right audience matters because misaligned cues create suspicion rather than respect. There are costs hidden under the polish. Keeping up appearances can lead people to spend more than they earn on clothes, subscriptions, or experiences just to maintain that favorable first impression. That gap between external signals and internal reality creates stress and sometimes debt, and it can make genuine connections harder when conversations never move past the surface. Still, the logic is clear. Because first impressions shape opportunities so swiftly, many choose the short-term gain of acting rich to influence how the world responds to them. Signs and signals, style, speech, and small trappings. A well-tailored blazer is often noticed before the person wearing it says a word. People read cut, proportion, and fabric at a glance. The shoulder line, sleeve break, how the jacket sits across the back, and those details tell a story about access and care that a logo never can. Scuffed shoes undermine the effect. A missing button or frayed cuff turns that signal from intentional into trying too hard, and the observer moves from respect to skepticism in one look. Speech does a lot of the heavy lifting in those early interactions. Measured pauses, concrete nouns, and the habit of letting a story breathe instead of rushing through it create an impression of time and choice. Listeners translate the control into comfort, and comfort gets read as having options. Tone can outweigh fancy vocabulary. A calm register, minimal filler words, and an occasional specific reference, a gallery that resonated, a restaurateur admired, convey familiarity with a world without bragging, and that subtlety makes people infer means before they check credentials. Small objects travel louder than you might expect. A slim leather card holder, a plain phone case, neatly organized keys with a minimalist key organizer, or earbuds in a soft pouch send a message of efficiency and taste, while a bulky wallet spilling receipts or a phone screen full of cracked signals neglect regardless of actual income. Logos shout when everything else is quiet. When understated accessories are matched by clear grooming, a well-trimmed beard, clean nails, pressed collars, the whole package reads as intentional, and observers assume time, money, or both. Consistency is the quiet currency that makes these signals believable. Mixed messages, an expensive watch paired with a thrift store belt and ink stains on the cuffs, force others to resolve the mismatch, and they often downgrade the initial impression. Steady upkeep, like tailored hems, polished shoes, or a wrinkle-free shirt, supports the narrative that appearance reflects lifestyle rather than theatre. Small habits compound into credibility. People who replace worn items, mend seams, rotate shoes to preserve shape, and keep gadgets tidy create a pattern of reliability that opens doors to introductions and opportunities, reinforcing the acted-rich identity. The thought experiment, belief, behavior, and pretend wealth. There's a strange tension when someone presents themselves as if they belong in a nicer world than their bank balance suggests. The thought experiment kicks off from that tension and follows a simple chain. Belief changes behavior, behavior changes others' responses, and those responses feed back into belief until the original pretense feels real. A junior account manager who starts wearing a neat blazer and carrying a solid leather notebook will often be put into different rooms and conversations than before. That one change in wardrobe doesn't make them richer overnight, but it does change who listens, who introduces them, and what opportunities show up. Other people's reactions act like a mirror and a microphone at once. When colleagues or clients treat someone as if they have status, offering introductions, deferring to their opinion, inviting them into higher stakes deals, that social input nudges behavior toward actual competence and confidence, because practical chances and supportive feedback arrive. For example, a freelance designer who rents a small co-working office with a tidy meeting room is more likely to host clients in person, clarify expectations, and secure larger projects than they did working only from cafes. The environment signals reliability, and reliability draws business. It doesn't take splurging on headline luxury to trigger the same loop. Tiny, consistent moves make a big difference. Showing up early, using clear language in proposals, keeping a clean voicemail, and choosing a few quality garments instead of many cheap ones. A clearer LinkedIn photo and a concise bio often bring different kinds of inbound messages than a neglected profile does, and that shift in attention changes the kinds of opportunities that land on your desk. Small practical edits accumulate. Over months, they alter how others perceive your competence and how you perceive yourself. There's also a downside people quietly discover when the pretense mismatches reality. Pretending to be wealthy while funding the image with high-interest debt or unstable income leads to stress, missed payments, and damaged relationships, because the social signals are fragile once creditors, partners, or peers notice the gap. A person who maxes cards to keep up appearances can lose more than money. They can lose trust. That's why the thought experiment matters most as a prompt. It shows both how easily belief and behavior shape social reality, and how important it is to let those enacted signals align with sustainable choices so the loop reinforces capability rather than disguise. Costs, compromises, and social payoffs. A flashy car can act like social currency, signaling competence or success in seconds. It costs more than the sticker price. Insurance rates rise, repairs are pricier, and routine upkeep that friends don't see adds up fast when tires, brakes, and alignments are specialized. Leasing seems cheaper month to month, but the contract terms, mileage limits, and wear and tear fees create surprise bills later. That monthly image payment competes directly with saving, investing, or building an emergency cushion. Looking affluent forces small compromises that pile up. People cut corners elsewhere so the image stays intact. They skip therapy, postpone a dentist visit, or eat cheaper food to free cash for designer shoes. Those adjustments reduce quality of life in ways that aren't immediately visible. To keep appearances, they might take extra shifts, pick up gig work, or swap meaningful hobbies for networking events. And that lost time and energy compounds into stress that undercuts whatever advantage the image was meant to deliver. A polished presentation also opens real doors in certain social and professional settings. In sales, a tailored suit and confident manner can shorten trust building and lead to meetings that would not happen otherwise. At social mixes and co-working lounges, visible markers, good shoes, a high-end laptop bag, membership at a private gym grant access to conversations, introductions, and invitations that are otherwise gated. Those payoffs are situational though. A well-timed connection can turn into a client or collaborator, but if the underlying resources aren't there, the relationship may recalibrate once financial reality shows. Sometimes the trade-off is pragmatic, sometimes it's damaging. A real estate agent who stages homes and dresses sharply may recover that expense through quicker sales and higher commissions, while a homeowner who borrows to fund a perpetual lifestyle of looks could find liquidity strained and reputation harmed when friends learn the truth. The payoff depends on context and the margin for error. If your industry values perception, small, sustainable investments into appearance can be productive, but overshooting without a plan creates debt, anxiety, and brittle social ties that break when inconsistencies appear, turning acting into real financial moves. It's common for visible purchases to become a shortcut to perceived success, and that pressure pushes people into choices that look rich but aren't financially smart. Flashy cars, rented designer dresses for parties, and constant dining out create the impression of wealth, but those expenses are often financed with credit or short-term loans, which squeezes cash flow and reduces the ability to save. The cause and effect is straightforward. High recurring payments leave little room for emergency funds or investments, and that fragility is what turns acting rich into being poor on paper. That outward show can be turned into real financial moves by swapping transient status goods for assets or skill investments that increase future earning power. Instead of stretching for a luxury sofa on a long loan, paying for a professional certification or a portfolio of freelance work can raise income potential and open new opportunities. A concrete example: someone who spends on appearances but invests that same monthly amount in a skill-building course and networking events might land a higher paid role, which changes their true net worth over time. A practical switch is to treat lifestyle upgrades like subscription expenses and automate them into either savings or investment buckets. When a monthly appearance or social life budget is redirected into an automatic transfer to a taxable investment account or a retirement plan, the psychological comfort of recurring spending remains, but the money compounds instead of vanishing. This causes steady wealth accumulation rather than a string of receipts that prove status for a night. Small swaps in visible consumption create the same social effect with less financial damage. Tailoring a few well-made garments keeps a polished look without buying dozens of fast fashion items. Renting a high-end outfit for a single event rather than buying it outright preserves cash and limits depreciation losses. Those choices reduce expense volatility and make it easier to build cash reserves that can be used for investment or opportunity capture. Strategic signaling can also be leveraged to actually generate returns when it opens doors that lead to higher income. Investing modestly in a clean portfolio website, an up-to-date LinkedIn profile, or attending targeted industry meetups can yield job leads and freelance clients. The effect is causal. Better presentation and targeted networking improve perceived competence, which can translate into more interviews and offers, converting acting into measurable financial progress. Finally, protecting against the downside means creating buffers and avoiding high-cost credit for lifestyle signaling. Building a simple emergency fund and prioritizing the reduction of high-interest debt preserves the optionality to take career risks, switch jobs, or invest in a business idea. When the finances are stable, the same outward confidence that once came from appearances can be channeled into choices that actually increase assets and future income. Feeling like you have to look rich even though your bank balance says otherwise? The shift we covered is simple. Stop chasing pricey signals and start making choices that build options. Buy one durable jacket instead of 5 cheap ones. Spend evenings learning a marketable skill instead of scrolling. Keep your schedule clear so you can actually take opportunities. Those moves change how people perceive you and, more importantly, change where your time and money go. You probably know someone who dressed the part and still ended up with a pile of credit card bills. That's what happens when image is the goal, debt follows. When the goal becomes creating optionality, different things happen. A friend who cut down on impulse shopping used the savings for a weekend course, picked up freelance clients, and 2 years later had a steady income boost. Same wardrobe, different habits, different result. It doesn't mean pretending to be wealthy or living a lie. It means leaning into habits that create leverage over time. And if you want to see concrete examples, there are more videos coming. Real interviews with people who started with nothing, day-in-the-life routines that don't cost a fortune, and case studies of tiny trade-offs that led to big changes. And if this resonated, following will make it easier to catch those stories when they drop. Change almost always feels slow at first. Small choices compound. Skipping a few impulsive buys, opening your calendar for learning, saying yes to one awkward networking coffee, turn into momentum, and first will keep sharing the stories and steps that helped others move from acting rich to having more control over their lives. Thanks for watching, and First will see you in the next one.